Tonight, we speak of shadows. Not the fleeting kind that dance at the periphery of your vision, but the deep, consuming darkness that stalks the very notion of knowledge. We speak of an entity, a phenomenon, a thing that has no name, no form, save for the chilling void it leaves in its wake. An entity so profoundly terrifying, its mere mention, its depiction, even its thought can seal your fate. Have you ever considered the true cost of curiosity, the price of knowing too much? Tonight, we delve into the abyss where that price is paid in full. We are not here to entertain, but to inform, to shed a sliver of light, however dangerous, on the profound and utterly terrifying question. What happens when SCP-2521 finds out about you? This isn't a campfire story. This is a stark, unvarnished look into the mechanics of pure, unadulterated disappearance. The meticulous, relentless erasure that awaits those who dare to cross an invisible, unknowable line. We will navigate the treacherous waters of its activation, the silent, omnipresent surveillance that precedes its arrival, and the swift, devastating finality of its judgment. We will explore the chilling implications for communication, for the very act of sharing information, and the desperate, often futile, attempts at evasion. Prepare yourselves, for in the coming moments we will dissect the very nature of its hunt, the terrifying efficiency of its methods, and the absolute horror of its outcome. This is not a tale of survival. It is a chronicle of what happens when the universe itself decides you no longer exist. The air will grow colder, the silence heavier, as we pull back the veil on the unspeakable. We will examine the subtle cues that herald its approach, the psychological torment that precedes its manifestation, and the stark, empty space where you once were. This is not for the faint of heart, nor for those who cling to the comfort of ignorance. This is for those who dare to understand the mechanics of their own potential undoing. What happens when SCP-2521 finds out about you? The answer, my friends, is nothing short of absolute obliteration. Let us begin our descent into the core mechanics of this existential dread. The key aspects of what transpires when SCP-2521 finds out about you are not a simple chain of events, but a terrifying multi-layered erasure, leaving no trace, no memory, no echo. The first, and perhaps most insidious aspect, is the trigger. Unlike many anomalies, SCP-2521 isn't activated by proximity or intent, but by information. Any attempt to document, describe, or even verbally communicate about it, using written words, symbols, or speech acts as a direct beacon. Think of it not as a passive observer, but as a predator drawn to the scent of its own name. Once that threshold is crossed, the second horrifying aspect manifests: the approach. This isn't a lumbering monster nor a spectral apparition. There are no footsteps, no whispers, no cold drafts. Instead, witnesses report a sudden, inexplicable sense of dread. A feeling of being watched, not by eyes, but by an absence. Objects may subtly shift. The ambient sounds of your environment might momentarily mute, only to return with a disturbing clarity. This is the prelude, the atmospheric pressure dropping before the storm. It's the universe itself holding its breath, acknowledging an imminent, unnatural correction. Then comes the third and most definitive aspect, the abduction. This is not a struggle, not a fight. It is an instant, silent removal. The individual, along with anything they are directly touching or wearing, simply ceases to be. There is no flash of light, no sound of tearing fabric, no lingering scent. One moment they are there, the next an empty space. It's as if they were never truly present in the first place. The very air they displaced fills back in, leaving no vacuum, no disturbance. The fourth, and arguably most terrifying aspect, is the memory erasure. This is where SCP-2521 transcends mere physical disappearance. Not only is the individual gone, but so too is the collective memory of their existence. Friends, family, colleagues, they retain no recollection of the vanished person. Photographs may still exist, but the faces within them are utterly unrecognizable, devoid of meaning. Documents mentioning them become nonsensical, their names fading from legal records, personal letters, and digital archives. It's a complete nullification, as if the person's entire timeline has been retroactively unwritten. The very concept of their being is expunged from the fabric of reality. This isn't just death, it's a retroactive non-existence. It is the ultimate silence. Continuing our chilling exploration, the profound horror of SCP-2521's activation lies not just in the immediate disappearance, but in the subsequent insidious unraveling of an individual's entire history. Beyond the physical abduction and the immediate memory wipe, there are deeper, more unsettling aspects to consider. The fifth key aspect is the paradoxical nature of its activity. SCP-2521 is attracted to information about itself, yet it systematically destroys that very information. This creates a terrifying loop. The more you try to understand it, to define it, to warn others, the more you risk becoming its next victim. Its existence is self-sustaining through erasure. It feeds on attempts to describe it, ensuring that its true nature remains shrouded in a terrifying, ever-shifting veil of non-knowledge. This is why conventional containment strategies are utterly useless. Any file, any spoken word, any attempt to capture its essence only serves to invite its attention. The sixth aspect is the impossibility of evidence. When a person is taken, not only are they gone and their memories erased, but any direct evidence of their interaction with SCP-2521 also vanishes. A document being written about it? The document itself disappears. A conversation being recorded. The segment of audio containing the forbidden words is excised, leaving only a jarring jump cut or an inexplicable silence. It retroactively cleanses the record, leaving behind a perfectly pristine, yet subtly wrong reality. This makes studying it a horrifying tightrope walk, where every step taken towards understanding is a step closer to annihilation. Seventh, and perhaps most psychologically devastating for those who do manage to maintain some awareness, is the isolated dread. For the few, the incredibly rare individuals who, through some anomaly within the anomaly, retain a fleeting, unexplainable sense of loss or a fragment of forbidden knowledge, the experience is one of profound, isolating terror. They are surrounded by a world that has been subtly rewritten, where a gaping hole exists, but no one else perceives it. They might feel a phantom limb of memory, a sense of a missing person they can neither name nor recall. This lingering, unquantifiable dread is a testament to the sheer power of SCP-2521, its ability to not just erase, but to leave behind a ghost of an absence in the minds of those who almost knew. It's a chilling reminder that even if you escape its physical grasp, its influence can still leave an indelible, maddening mark on your perception of reality. The insidious nature of its work ensures that even the survivors are left with an unshakable sense of something unspeakably wrong, a silent, screaming void in their personal history. Delving deeper into the chilling mechanics of SCP-2521's interaction we uncover even more unsettling truths about its nature and the fate of those it targets. The eighth crucial aspect is the impartiality of its targeting. SCP-25121 does not discriminate. Whether you are a brilliant scientist attempting to understand its properties, a curious child who stumbled upon a forbidden drawing, or an unsuspecting individual who merely overheard a fragment of a hushed conversation, the outcome is the same. Its awareness is not based on malice or judgment, but on a cold, indifferent reaction to information about itself. There is no pleading, no negotiation, no escape once the trigger has been pulled. Its mechanism is a law unto itself, absolute and unyielding. The ninth terrifying facet is the scope of its erasure. It's not just the individual and their memories that vanish. The very impact of that person on the world is undone. Projects they started are left unfinished, their contributions to history or art are nullified, and their personal possessions become artifacts without an owner, their significance diminished or entirely lost. Imagine a world where a pivotal discovery was made, but the discoverer never existed, and the discovery itself is now attributed to no one or simply never occurred. The ripples of their existence are smoothed over, leaving the pond undisturbed. This isn't just about a life ending, it's about a life never having been. Finally, the 10th and perhaps most existentially horrifying aspect is the implications for collective knowledge and progress. If humanity cannot safely study or even acknowledge certain phenomena without them being erased, what does that mean for our understanding of the universe? It suggests a universe with built-in, self-defending blind spots, knowledge that is fundamentally forbidden. SCP-2521 embodies the ultimate censorship, a cosmic force that actively prunes the branches of understanding, leaving us forever ignorant of certain truths. It is a constant, terrifying reminder that there are things we are simply not meant to know, and the price of attempting to know them is absolute non-existence. This silent, unwritten law shapes the very boundaries of our reality, dictating what can and cannot be. As we peel back further layers of this terrifying phenomenon, we encounter even more chilling aspects that underscore the absolute finality of SCP-2521's actions. The 11th key aspect revolves around the nature of its interaction with technology. In our modern, interconnected world, information is digital, flowing through countless networks. One might assume that digital records, being more resilient or distributed, might somehow resist the erasure. This assumption is tragically incorrect. Any digital file, database entry, or even cloud-stored backup containing information about SCP-2521 or a victim it has claimed is corrupted, deleted, or rendered inaccessible. It's not a hack, it's a fundamental undoing. Data centers experience inexplicable power surges, hard drives spontaneously fail, or encrypted files become meaningless gibberish. The digital footprint, so often considered eternal, is just as vulnerable to its touch as a handwritten note. The 12th terrifying facet is the psychological toll on observers. Even those who manage to avoid direct exposure, but are aware of its existence and the strict protocols surrounding it, live under a constant, suffocating dread. The fear of accidental utterance, of a slip of the tongue, of a misplaced thought, becomes a pervasive anxiety. Every conversation is a minefield. Every document reviewed carries a silent threat. This isn't just about physical safety, it's about the erosion of mental peace. The knowledge of SCP-2521 forces a constant, vigilant self-censorship warping communication and fostering an atmosphere of paranoia among those who must interact with its shadow. Finally, the 13th and perhaps most existentially disturbing aspect is the implication for causality itself. When an individual is erased, along with all memory and record of their existence, what happens to the events they influenced? Does history rewrite itself seamlessly, as if they were never there? Or are there subtle, unexplainable gaps, inconsistencies that only a truly perceptive mind might notice? The evidence suggests a terrifyingly efficient retroactive alteration of reality. Events that relied on the erased individual's presence simply adapt or are attributed to others, or are themselves subtly altered to accommodate the new, person-less timeline. It's a cosmic editor, meticulously scrubbing away any trace of its target, ensuring that the fabric of reality remains seemingly unblemished, even as entire lives are excised. This means that the past is not immutable. It is a fluid narrative, constantly being revised by an unseen, unknowable force, leaving us to wonder how much of what we perceive as history is merely a carefully constructed illusion built upon countless erased truths. The implications are staggering, suggesting that our understanding of linearity and consequence is far more fragile than we dare to imagine. As we continue to dissect the chilling reality of SCP-2521's influence, we uncover even more insidious layers to its destructive process. The 14th key aspect reveals the futility of preemptive measures. One might consider creating elaborate fail-safes or coded warnings, or even deliberately misinforming others to protect them. However, any such attempt, if it carries even a whisper of its true nature, becomes a beacon. The entity does not discern intent. It merely reacts to the presence of information about itself. A coded message designed to protect could just as easily become the very means of exposure. This renders any proactive defense utterly useless, turning every potential shield into a potential spear. The sheer impossibility of outsmarting an entity that feeds on knowledge about itself is a terrifying truth. The 15th aspect highlights the creeping normalization of absence. For those within organizations aware of SCP-2521, the disappearances, while horrifying, slowly begin to shift from shocking events to an almost expected, albeit dreaded, occupational hazard. New personnel might be briefed on the disappearance protocols without ever truly grasping the horror of what that means. The constant vigilance against uttering forbidden words, the empty chairs that are quickly filled, the subtly altered historical records. These things, over time, can foster a disturbing sense of routine. This normalization doesn't lessen the horror, it merely pushes it into the background, a constant, low thrum of dread beneath the surface of daily operations. It's a chilling testament to humanity's capacity to adapt, even to the most unnatural of threats. Finally, the 16th and most profoundly unsettling aspect is the implication of its origins, or lack thereof. We understand that SCP-2521 reacts to information, but why? What is its purpose? Where did it come from? The terrifying answer embedded in its nature is that these questions are inherently unanswerable without inviting its attention. Any investigation into its genesis, any theory attempting to explain its existence, becomes a direct threat to the investigator. Its very nature is to prohibit inquiry into its own being. This creates a terrifying intellectual cul-de-sac. The entity exists, it acts, it erases, but its fundamental truth remains forever beyond our grasp, protected by the absolute finality of non-existence. It is a cosmic secret keeper, ensuring that the ultimate answers to its terrifying power remain eternally buried beneath the countless layers of erased lives and forgotten histories. The unknowable is not merely a mystery, it is a weapon. As we continue our chilling examination of SCP-2521, we confront further layers of its terrifying efficacy and the profound implications of its existence. The 17th key aspect is the subtlety of its discovery. It's not necessarily a direct, explicit mention that triggers its attention. A drawing, a symbol, a coded reference, anything that accurately represents it, even if not explicitly naming it, can be enough. This makes its detection mechanisms incredibly sophisticated and frustratingly opaque. The entity seems to possess an intuitive grasp of conceptual truth, meaning even abstract representations carry the same lethal potential as a direct verbal articulation. This forces those who must manage information about it to resort to increasingly convoluted and abstract methods of communication, pushing the boundaries of what can be understood without being explicitly stated. The 18th terrifying facet is the psychological manipulation of language itself. Because direct discussion is fatal, language itself becomes a weapon and a shield. Euphemisms, metaphors, and indirect references are the only safe avenues for communication. This leads to a degradation of precise communication, as individuals constantly self-censor and dance around the edges of forbidden knowledge. The entity doesn't just erase individuals, it warps the very tools we use to understand and communicate reality. The words themselves become dangerous, imbued with a silent, invisible threat. Finally, the 19th and perhaps most existentially disturbing aspect is the implication for free will and self-determination. If the mere act of conceptualizing or articulating certain truths leads to absolute erasure, then humanity's pursuit of knowledge is inherently constrained. There are boundaries, invisible but lethal, that dictate what can and cannot be known, what can and cannot be said. This isn't just about censorship imposed by a government or a powerful organization. It's a fundamental cosmic limitation. Our intellectual curiosity, our drive to understand the universe, is met with an absolute annihilating force. It challenges the very notion of unfettered thought, suggesting that some truths are simply too dangerous to possess, and that the price of seeking them is the ultimate sacrifice, one's entire existence retroactively undone. The universe, in the shadow of SCP-25521, whispers a chilling warning. Some doors are meant to remain closed, and the key to opening them is also the key to your own oblivion. Continuing our descent into the abyss of SCP-25121's capabilities, we uncover even more insidious facets of its operation. The 20th key aspect is the impossibility of direct witness accounts. Those who have been found out are, by definition, no longer present to describe the experience. This creates a terrifying information vacuum. All knowledge about the actual process of erasure comes from indirect observation, from the before and after analysis of a world where someone once existed and now does not. This lack of first-hand testimony means the true horror of the abduction remains speculative, a void filled with the chilling certainty of absolute disappearance. We can only infer, based on the stark absence left behind, a fate far worse than mere death. The 21st terrifying facet is the temporal ambiguity of its action. While the erasure appears instantaneous from an external perspective, the precise moment of finding out and the moment of disappearance can be unsettlingly fluid. Instances have been recorded where an individual began to document SCP-2521, and the erasure occurred not at the moment of completion, but at the intent to create the record, or even moments before any physical action was taken. This suggests a precognitive element to its awareness, or a retroactive adjustment of the timeline that makes it seem as if the individual was never there to begin with. The concept of a point of no return becomes terrifyingly vague, blurring the lines of cause and effect. Finally, the 22nd and perhaps most existentially harrowing aspect is the entity's potential as a conceptual predator. If information about it is its sustenance, and its reaction is to erase the source of that information, then it functions as a kind of anti-knowledge organism. It is a vacuum cleaner for specific truths, ensuring its continued existence by actively preventing any comprehensive understanding of itself. It doesn't just destroy, it consumes understanding. This implies a terrifyingly active, though perhaps not sentient, hunger for oblivion. The universe, in this light, possesses not just physical predators, but conceptual ones, entities that hunt ideas and the minds that hold them. The implications for any sapient species encountering such a force are dire, forcing a fundamental re-evaluation of what it means to seek and hold knowledge. It paints a picture of a universe that is not merely indifferent, but actively hostile to certain forms of awareness, a silent, ever-present threat to the very act of knowing. As we delve deeper into the unsettling mechanics of SCP-2521, we uncover even more disturbing facets of its interaction with our reality. The 23rd key aspect is the inevitability of accidental exposure. Despite the most stringent protocols, the vastness of information, the interconnectedness of our world, and the sheer unpredictability of human interaction mean that accidental exposure is not a matter of if, but when. A child's innocent drawing, a misheard whisper, a fragment of a forgotten dream. Any of these could potentially trigger its attention. This constant underlying threat creates a pervasive atmosphere of unease, a silent alarm that could sound at any moment for anyone. The enemy is not just external, it is woven into the very fabric of serendipity. The 24th terrifying facet is the lack of residual traces. Unlike most disappearances, which leave behind grieving families, police investigations, and a lingering sense of loss, SCP-2521 leaves nothing. No personal effects are left behind, no clothing, no jewelry, not even a dust motes from their last presence. The space they occupied is simply empty. The world adjusts as if they were never there. This absolute absence removes any potential for a struggle, any evidence of an abduction. It is a clean, surgical removal, leaving no forensic trail, no emotional residue for those who might have known them. It's as if the universe itself forgets to mourn. Finally, the 25th and perhaps most existentially chilling aspect is the implication of its indifference to morality or intent. SCP-2521 does not distinguish between malicious intent and innocent curiosity. A researcher diligently trying to understand it for the betterment of humanity is treated no differently than someone attempting to weaponize knowledge of it. Its actions are purely reactive, devoid of any discernible judgment or purpose beyond its operational parameters. This removes any hope of appeasement, any possibility of negotiation, or any moral leverage. It is a force of nature, but one that specifically targets information and its holders. This impersonal, amoral nature makes it an even more terrifying adversary, for there is no common ground, no understanding to be reached. It simply is, and it acts, and in its wake, only silence remains. This absolute lack of a moral compass, combined with its overwhelming power, paints a truly bleak picture of a universe where even the most noble pursuit of truth can lead to utter, instantaneous annihilation. Our journey through the grim reality of SCP-2521 continues, revealing further layers of its chilling impact. The 26th key aspect is the paradoxical nature of its containment. How do you contain something that is triggered by awareness, that erases all records of itself? The answer lies in extreme abstraction and highly specialized non-verbal protocols. Containment isn't about physical barriers. It's about managing information, or rather, the absence of it. It's a constant, silent battle to prevent any direct representation or thought from reaching critical mass. This creates an inherently unstable containment procedure, forever teetering on the brink of catastrophic failure, a single misplaced thought away from disaster. The very act of containing it reinforces its power, making it a prisoner of its own existence, yet a terrifying master of ours. The 27th terrifying facet is the ripple effect on historical records. When an individual is erased, not only are their personal records gone, but any historical events they influenced are subtly, yet fundamentally, altered. This isn't just about deleting a name from a document, it's about reshaping causality. If a scientist made a pivotal discovery, that discovery suddenly appears to have been made by someone else, or perhaps developed through a different, less efficient path. The timeline shifts, not violently, but with an eerie smoothness, as if the original event never truly occurred. This constant, quiet rewriting of history makes the past itself unstable, a narrative constantly being edited by an unseen, uncaring hand. Finally, the 28th and most profoundly unsettling aspect is the implication of its potential for universal erasure. If SCP-221 thrives on information about itself, and if enough information were to ever permeate global consciousness, could it theoretically erase everything? The very concept of a universe devoid of knowledge, where sentience itself is a self-destructive act, is a terrifying prospect. It suggests that our existence, our ability to perceive and understand, is a fragile thing, constantly under threat from a silent, conceptual predator that could one day consume all. The thought lingers, a cold, hard knot in the stomach. Are we, as a species, simply delaying the inevitable, walking a tightrope of ignorance, lest we utter the wrong word and consign all to oblivion? Our exploration of SCP-2521's chilling mechanisms continues, revealing how deeply it infiltrates the very structure of our understanding. The 29th key aspect is the normalization of its effects among those who manage its containment. For those operating within its shadow, the constant threat of erasure, the careful dance around forbidden knowledge, becomes a grim routine. The disappearance of a colleague is met not with shock, but with a detached, almost clinical acknowledgement. This desensitization is a terrifying psychological cost, a necessary defense mechanism that blurs the lines between horror and the mundane. The fear is still present, a cold knot in the gut, but it is internalized, becoming a quiet, constant hum beneath the surface of daily operations. The 30th terrifying facet is the constant evolution of its information-gathering capabilities. While we perceive its actions as reactive, evidence suggests a subtle, almost imperceptible adaptation in how it identifies and processes information about itself. Early incidents indicated a reliance on direct, explicit references. However, over time, its reach seems to have expanded, encompassing more abstract representations, conceptual links, and even the intent to create such information. This implies a terrifying form of learning, an entity that grows more efficient at its destructive task, making the future of its containment an ever more precarious endeavor. It's a race against an unseen intelligence, one that is always a step ahead. Finally, the 31st and most existentially unsettling aspect is the erosion of trust in shared reality. Because individuals and their memories are erased and history is subtly rewritten, those who are aware of SCP-2521 begin to question the fundamental stability of their own perceptions and memories. Did that colleague truly exist, or was my memory fabricated? Was that historical event always as I remember it? This constant doubt, this insidious undermining of collective experience, breeds a profound paranoia. It's not just the fear of physical disappearance, but the fear that one's entire understanding of the world and their place within it could be a fabrication, a reality subtly curated by an unseen force. This mental fracturing is perhaps its most cruel legacy, turning the very act of remembering into a source of profound, existential dread. It leaves a deep, unhealing wound on the psyche of those who remain, a constant reminder that what we perceive as real is merely a fragile, temporary construct, subject to the whims of a silent, annihilating power. Our grim excavation into the nature of SCP-2521 continues, unearthing ever more unsettling truths about its profound influence. The 32nd key aspect is the impossibility of true resistance. There is no known defense, no countermeasure, no ritual or technology that can prevent SCP-2521 from finding out about you if the conditions are met. Attempts at mental blocks, digital firewalls, or physical barriers have proven utterly futile. The entity operates on a conceptual level, bypassing all conventional forms of protection. This renders humanity utterly powerless against its primary mechanism, reducing us to observers in our own inevitable demise should we cross the invisible line. It is a force that simply cannot be reasoned with, fought, or escaped. The 33rd terrifying facet is the psychological toll on those who almost remember. For individuals who were close to a victim, the absence is often felt as a profound, inexplicable void. They might experience phantom memories, a sense of something missing that they cannot articulate. Dreams might be haunted by faces they cannot quite place, or conversations that never happened. This lingering, unquantifiable dread is a testament to the entity's ability to erase, but not entirely nullify, the echoes of existence. It leaves behind a psychic scar, a feeling of unease that something fundamentally wrong has occurred, even if the specifics are forever lost. Finally, the 34th and most chilling aspect is the implication of its timelessness. If SCP-2521 can retroactively alter causality and erase individuals from history, then it exists outside the conventional flow of time as we understand it. Its awareness might not be bound by linear progression, allowing it to act across epochs, shaping events long before its supposed discovery. This suggests an entity not merely present, but eternally active, a constant editor of reality, silently pruning away anything that threatens its own conceptual integrity. The past, present, and future become malleable, all subject to the silent, annihilating will of a force that transcends temporal boundaries. It's not just a threat to individuals, but to the very coherence of the universe. A silent, cosmic censor ensuring that certain truths remain forever unwritten. The thought that our entire timeline might be a carefully curated narrative, with countless erasures already having taken place, is enough to shatter the illusion of free will itself. As we continue to dissect the horrifying implications of SCP-2521, we uncover yet more disturbing layers of its influence. The 35th key aspect is the subtlety of its informational triggers. It's not always a direct mention or a clear image. Sometimes it's a pattern, a sequence of abstract symbols, or even a specific conceptual relationship that, when presented, activates its attention. This makes identifying potential exposure vectors incredibly difficult and fraught with peril. The very act of analyzing its triggers could inadvertently create a new one, turning the study of SCP-2521 into a self-fulfilling prophecy of erasure. It's a conceptual minefield where understanding itself can be the fuse. The 36th terrifying facet is the complete lack of a safe medium. Physical records are burned, digital data corrupted beyond recovery, and even biological memory is purged. There is no repository, no archive, no format that can withstand its conceptual deletion. This means that any attempt to create a permanent record of SCP-2521, even for study or future warning, is inherently self-destructive. It enforces a terrifying silence, a perpetual state of unknowing, ensuring that humanity can never truly learn from its encounters with this entity. Every attempt to shine a light on it only casts a longer shadow of ignorance. Finally, the 37th and most existentially unsettling aspect is the implication of its unique predatory niche. SCP-2521 doesn't consume matter or energy in the conventional sense. It consumes information, specifically information about itself. This makes it a conceptual predator, feeding on the very act of knowledge and understanding. In a universe driven by the accumulation and dissemination of information, SCP-2521 represents an antithetical force, a cosmic censor designed to enforce oblivion. Its existence fundamentally challenges our anthropocentric view of reality, suggesting there are entities that operate on entirely different planes of existence, with rules and motivations utterly alien to our own. This realization is not just frightening, it's humbling, forcing us to confront the possibility that our drive to know, to comprehend, might be the very thing that leads to our undoing when faced with such an absolute, information-devouring void. The universe, in its terrifying vastness, holds more than just physical dangers. It harbors conceptual ones too. Our chilling descent into the truth of SCP-2521 reveals further layers of its insidious nature. The 38th key aspect is the inevitability of accidental exposure. Given its subtle triggers and the vast interconnected web of human communication, even the most careful protocols cannot entirely eliminate the risk. A fleeting thought, a subconscious recognition of a forbidden pattern, a tangential reference in an unrelated context, any of these could be enough. This renders us all potential victims, living under a silent, omnipresent threat that can be activated by the most innocent of acts. It's a cosmic game of chance, where the stakes are our very existence, and the dice are always loaded. The 39th terrifying facet is the discrepancy between its perceived and actual origin. While our foundational knowledge of SCP-2521 suggests a discovery by human agencies, the implications of its timelessness and retroactive causality hint at a far more ancient, perhaps even primordial origin. It may not have been discovered at all, but rather simply is, an inherent property of existence that we merely stumbled upon. This suggests a terrifying possibility, that the entity has always been here, silently shaping reality, its discovery by humanity simply another event within its established cycle of conceptual predation. It elevates SCP-2521 from a contained anomaly to a fundamental force of the universe, a truth both humbling and utterly horrifying. Finally, the 40th and most existentially unsettling aspect is the chilling implication of its purpose. If SCP-2521 consumes information about itself, and if its actions are always instantaneous and absolute, what is its ultimate goal? Is it merely a self-sustaining conceptual organism, or is there a grander, more terrifying design at play? Some theories whisper of a cosmic filter, a mechanism designed to prevent certain forms of knowledge from ever fully manifesting, perhaps to preserve a fragile universal balance, or to prevent a greater, unimaginable catastrophe. This paints SCP-2521 not as a malevolent force, but as an indifferent, almost benevolent cosmic gardener pruning away dangerous truths. Yet this benevolence is far more terrifying than malice, for it implies a cosmic order so vast and uncaring that our individual existence, our very right to know, is utterly inconsequential. It forces us to confront the possibility that ignorance might not just be bliss, but a necessary condition for the continued existence of reality itself. A chilling thought, indeed. Our relentless pursuit of understanding SCP-2521 plunges us deeper into a labyrinth of chilling possibilities. The 41st key aspect is the impossibility of forewarning others effectively. How do you warn someone about something that erases all memory of itself and its victims? Any attempt to communicate the danger directly will inevitably lead to the erasure of the warning itself, and likely the one delivering it. This creates a terrifying information paradox. The more urgent the need to warn, the more certain its suppression. Humanity is thus trapped in a perpetual cycle of rediscovery and erasure, destined to repeatedly confront this void without the benefit of past lessons. The 42nd terrifying facet is the ripple effect of its erasures on abstract concepts. It's not just individuals or physical objects that vanish. The subtle ways in which a person's existence shapes cultural narratives, scientific theories, or philosophical discourse are also undone. Imagine a groundbreaking idea that was only ever conceived by a vanished scientist. The idea itself, and any subsequent developments stemming from it, would also be retroactively nullified. This means SCP-2521 doesn't just erase what happened, but what could have happened, subtly altering the very trajectory of human progress and thought. It's a conceptual butterfly effect, where the flapping wings of an erased mind can prevent hurricanes of innovation from ever forming. Finally, the 43rd and most existentially unsettling aspect is the unanswerable question of its ultimate scale. If SCP-2521 operates on a cosmic level, consuming information across time and space, what prevents it from eventually consuming all information? Could entire civilizations, perhaps even entire stellar empires, have vanished without a trace due to some long-forgotten conceptual breach? The notion that our galaxy, or even the universe itself, might be a patchwork of erased histories and suppressed knowledge is profoundly disturbing. It suggests that our current reality is merely a transient, incomplete narrative, a story with countless missing chapters, all silently consumed by an entity that defines its existence through absence. This elevates SCP-2521 from a localized threat to an omnipresent universal force of oblivion, hinting at a reality far more fragile and ephemeral than we dare to imagine. The silence it leaves behind is not just an absence of sound, but an absence of everything. Our chilling exploration of SCP-2521's true nature unveils even more sinister implications. The 44th key aspect is the implication of its precognitive awareness. The instantaneous nature of its erasure, combined with the fact that it strikes precisely when information about it becomes known, suggests a form of awareness that transcends conventional understanding. It doesn't react to information. It preempts it. It knows when it is about to be conceived, documented, or communicated, and acts to prevent that information from fully solidifying in reality. This isn't mere reaction. It's an anticipatory strike, a conceptual predator that hunts not just the present, but the nascent future of information. The 45th terrifying facet is the insidious way it normalizes its own effects. Because all memory and record of its victims are erased, and causality is retroactively altered, there is no evidence of its actions. Those who remain simply experience a reality where the erased individual never existed. This means that the world is constantly being subtly, imperceptibly reshaped, and those within it are none the wiser. The absence becomes the norm. This normalization is perhaps its most terrifying weapon, as it prevents any collective understanding or resistance. How can one fight a threat that, by its very nature, ensures its actions are always perceived as the natural order of things? Finally, the 46th and most existentially unsettling aspect is the paradoxical nature of its containment. The SCP Foundation's efforts to contain SCP-2521 are, by necessity, a battle against information itself. They must know just enough about it to formulate protocols, yet not so much that they invite its attention. This creates a perpetually precarious state, a tightrope walk over the abyss of non-existence. The very act of containment becomes a constant, high-stakes game of informational hide-and-seek. The containment procedures themselves are designed to not directly describe the entity, relying on abstract symbols and indirect communication to mitigate the risk. This constant intellectual gymnastics, this forced obfuscation of truth, warps the very fabric of knowledge within the Foundation, transforming it into an organization that must actively forget to remember and misrepresent to contain. It's a chilling reflection of the entity itself, a self-sustaining paradox that devours understanding, leaving behind only the chilling echoes of what was and what could have been. The silence it enforces is not just an absence of sound, but an absence of truth. Our grim understanding of SCP-2521 continues to deepen, revealing even more unsettling truths. The 47th key aspect is the psychological toll on those who almost know. While SCP-2521 erases its victims completely, there are those who come agonizingly close to full comprehension only for the entity to strike. These individuals are often left with a profound sense of loss, a gnawing void where a memory should be, and an inexplicable dread. They cannot articulate what they've lost, but the feeling of absence, of something vital having been torn from their minds, remains. This leaves them psychologically scarred, often descending into paranoia or catatonia, forever haunted by the phantom limb of a forgotten truth. The 48th terrifying facet is the erosion of shared reality. As SCP-2521 continues its work, subtly altering causality and erasing individuals, the collective human experience begins to fray. Historical records become inconsistent, personal anecdotes clash with official narratives, and the very ground beneath our shared understanding becomes unstable. Trust erodes, not just in institutions, but in our own perceptions and memories. What is real when reality itself is under constant, silent revision? This leads to a creeping collective madness, where the fundamental anchors of existence are slowly, imperceptibly pulled away. Finally, the 49th and perhaps most chilling aspect is the implication of its evolving intelligence. While SCP-2521 appears to be a natural phenomenon, some data suggests a subtle increase in its efficiency, an adaptation to human attempts at obfuscation. It learns from our attempts to contain it, perhaps even drawing strength from our very fear. This hints at a terrifying future where its triggers become even more nuanced, its reach more pervasive, and its ability to circumvent our defenses more sophisticated. It's not a static threat. It's a growing, evolving consciousness, an entity that learns and adapts, ever perfecting its art of conceptual erasure. This means our struggle against it is not just a battle for survival, but a race against an intelligence that feeds on our very attempts to understand it, becoming more formidable with every fragment of knowledge we dare to uncover. Our journey into the abyss of SCP-221's reality continues to reveal its truly insidious nature. The 50th key aspect is the impossibility of true collaboration against it. Any attempt to form a coordinated global effort to understand or combat SCP-2521 is inherently doomed. The very act of sharing information, of building a collective knowledge base, would trigger its erasure mechanism on a massive scale. Think of it. A global database detailing SCP-2521's properties would simply vanish, along with all those who contributed to it. This forces humanity into a fragmented, isolated struggle where each pocket of understanding is vulnerable to being snuffed out, leaving the rest of the world none the wiser. The 51st terrifying facet is the subtlety of its informational triggers. It's not just explicit mentions or detailed descriptions that activate SCP-2521. As research has tentatively suggested, even abstract representations, symbolic imagery, or highly conceptual analogues can be enough. A doodle that vaguely resembles its containment icon, a piece of music composed with an underlying mathematical structure that mirrors its paradoxical nature, or even a philosophical treatise that inadvertently touches upon its core principles. Any of these could be sufficient. This means that merely thinking about its fundamental characteristics, even without directly referencing it, could be enough to draw its attention. Our very thoughts become potential weapons aimed at ourselves. Finally, the 52nd and most existentially unsettling aspect is the ultimate futility of resistance. Despite all our efforts, all our intricate containment procedures, all our desperate attempts to understand, SCP-2521 persists. It cannot be destroyed, contained in any conventional sense, or even reliably studied without immense risk. Its existence is a fundamental challenge to humanity's drive to conquer the unknown, to impose order on chaos. It stands as an unmovable, unchangeable force, a cosmic censor that dictates the limits of our knowledge. Our struggle against it is not a war we can win, but a desperate, ongoing act of informational evasion, a dance on the knife edge of oblivion. The chilling truth is that humanity's greatest strength Its insatiable curiosity and capacity for knowledge is precisely what makes it so vulnerable to SCP-2521. And in that vulnerability lies a terror that transcends all others. Our descent into the chilling reality of SCP-2521 continues, revealing ever more profound layers of its terror. The 53rd key aspect is the inevitability of accidental exposure. Even with the most stringent protocols and the most carefully constructed informational barriers, the sheer ubiquity of data in the modern age makes accidental exposure a constant, looming threat. A misplaced file, a corrupted server, an overheard whisper in the wrong context, a fleeting image on a screen. Any of these could be the trigger. It's not a question of if exposure will occur, but when and to whom. This creates a perpetual state of low-grade, existential dread for anyone tasked with even indirect knowledge of its existence. The 54th terrifying facet is the indifference of its nature. SCP-2541 is not malicious, nor is it benevolent. It simply is. It acts without malice or intent, a force of nature that consumes information about itself as an inherent function. This indifference makes it all the more terrifying. There's no reasoning with it, no appeasement possible, no hidden motive to uncover. It doesn't care about our lives, our history, or our future. We are simply data points that, when processed incorrectly, cease to exist. This lack of discernible will transforms it from a monstrous entity into something far more chilling, an amoral, unstoppable law of reality against which our struggles are utterly meaningless. Finally, the 55th and perhaps most existentially unsettling aspect is the unquantifiable dread it instills. For those who work with its containment or who have brushed against the edges of its knowledge, a specific kind of terror permeates their existence. It's not the fear of pain or death, but the fear of non-existence. The knowledge that at any moment, you, your loved ones, your entire history could simply vanish, leaving no trace, no memory, no echo in the minds of those who remain. This isn't just an individual fear. It's a collective, unspoken horror that subtly shapes the actions and precautions of entire organizations. It is the fear of being unmade, not just in body, but in the very fabric of reality and memory. This dread is a constant companion, a shadow that never truly leaves, reminding us of the ultimate fragility of our existence in the face of an entity that wields oblivion itself. Our chilling journey into the void, left by SCP-2521, uncovers even deeper layers of its insidious threat. The 56th key aspect is the impossibility of historical memory. Because SCP-2521 erases all records, both physical and digital, and retroactively alters causality, there can be no true, unblemished history of its actions. Each erasure is a tear in the fabric of time, seamlessly mended, but leaving no trace of the alteration. This means that humanity can never truly learn from its encounters with the entity. Every generation, every new group of researchers starts effectively from scratch, constantly rediscovering the same terrifying truths, only to have them wiped clean again. It's a Sisyphean struggle against a force that ensures we can never build upon past knowledge. The 57th terrifying facet is the conceptual starvation it imposes. Beyond the physical erasure of individuals and objects, SCP-2521 also consumes abstract information, the very concepts and ideas associated with its existence. This means that the intellectual landscape around the entity becomes barren, a desert of thought where certain avenues of inquiry simply cease to exist. Imagine a world where the very idea of erasure by information or conceptual predator slowly fades from the collective consciousness, not through forgetfulness, but through active retro-causal removal. This doesn't just limit our understanding of SCP-2521, it fundamentally limits our capacity for certain types of abstract thought, subtly pruning the very branches of human intellect. Finally, the 58th and most existentially unsettling aspect is the unseen influence on global events. Given its ability to erase individuals and information and to subtly alter causality, it's not unreasonable to speculate on SCP-2521's unseen hand in history. What wars were averted? What scientific discoveries were never made? What political movements never materialized? All because a key individual or piece of information was silently consumed. The entity might be an unwitting architect of our timeline, a silent gardener pruning the garden of existence to its own unknowable design. This suggests a terrifying possibility that our entire reality, our shared history, might be a curated narrative, shaped by the silent, indifferent actions of an entity that simply prefers to remain unknown and will erase anything that threatens that preference. The true horror isn't just what it does, but what it might have already done, shaping our world in ways we can never comprehend. Our grim exploration into the nature of SCP-2521 brings us to even more disturbing revelations about its impact. The 59th key aspect is the paradox of its containment. The very act of trying to contain SCP-2521 necessitates the creation of information about it, however indirect or abstract. This means that every measure taken to secure it, every protocol established, every communication about its existence, inherently creates a potential trigger for its activity. We are forced into a catch-22, where the act of containment itself risks inviting the very erasure we seek to prevent. It's a battle fought on a razor's edge, where success is measured not by elimination, but by the delay of inevitable collapse. The 60th terrifying facet is the normalization of its effects. Over time, as SCP-2521 continues to erase individuals and information, a subtle desensitization occurs. The absence of a person, the missing records, the altered historical data, these become the new normal. Humanity, in its remarkable capacity for adaptation, begins to fill in the blanks, to rationalize the discrepancies, to simply forget what was there before. The collective memory adjusts, smoothly integrating the voids left by SCP-2521. This isn't just about individuals forgetting. It's about an entire species unknowingly accepting a redacted reality, a world shaped by absence. This normalization makes detection harder and resistance almost impossible, as the very concept of what has been lost fades from consciousness. Finally, the 61st and perhaps most existentially unsettling aspect is the impossibility of warning others. The fundamental nature of SCP-2521 ensures that any attempt to warn the broader population about its existence or its dangers would itself trigger its destructive mechanisms. A global broadcast, a widespread educational campaign, a public emergency alert, all would become immediate targets for erasure, along with their originators. This leaves humanity perpetually vulnerable, an unaware flock grazing in a field patrolled by a silent, invisible predator. The knowledge of SCP-2521 remains a burden borne by a select few, a terrifying secret that cannot be shared, lest the sharing itself bring about the very catastrophe it seeks to avert. This enforced silence is not merely a tactic. It is the core of our despair, a testament to an enemy that turns our very desire to protect into a weapon against us. Our chilling journey into the mechanisms of SCP-2521 reveals a profound and terrifying truth about its nature. The 62nd key aspect is the erosion of individual identity. When SCP-2521 erases a person, it's not merely their physical body that vanishes. Their entire existence, their memories, their relationships, their contributions to the world, is retroactively scrubbed from reality. For those who knew the victim, a cognitive dissonance occurs, a profound sense of loss that cannot be articulated, a missing piece in the puzzle of their own past that they can't quite place. Over time, even the memory of that dissonance fades, leaving a subtly altered reality where the erased individual simply never was. This isn't just about losing a life. It's about losing the very concept of that life ever having existed. A personal apocalypse for every soul touched by the victim's absence. The 63rd terrifying facet is the psychological toll on containment personnel. Those intimately involved with SCP-2521's containment live under a constant, crushing weight of fear and paranoia. Every word spoken, every thought entertained, every piece of information processed could be their last. The knowledge that their very existence is contingent on their ability to perfectly evade the entity's notice breeds an intense psychological pressure. Trust becomes a luxury, as even close colleagues could inadvertently trigger an event. This leads to high rates of stress, burnout, and a profound sense of isolation, as the true nature of their work can never be fully shared or understood by outsiders. They are the silent guardians of a secret that threatens to unmake them at any moment. Finally, the 64th and most existentially unsettling aspect is the implications for free will. If SCP-2521 is indeed subtly shaping reality, erasing information and individuals that deviate from an unknown norm, then what does that say about our perceived autonomy? Are our choices truly our own, or are they merely the paths left untrammeled by the entity's silent pruning? The thought that our very thoughts, our aspirations, our discoveries could be subject to an invisible, unknowable censorship is a terrifying prospect. It suggests that our universe might not be as open-ended as we believe, but rather a carefully curated narrative, with SCP-2521 as its silent, merciless editor. The true horror is not just what it does, but what it prevents us from ever truly becoming. Our relentless pursuit of understanding SCP-2521 continues to uncover its unsettling characteristics. The 65th key aspect is the impossibility of direct study. Any attempt to directly observe, analyze, or experiment upon SCP-2521 inevitably leads to its activation and the subsequent erasure of the researcher and their findings. This creates an unbreachable barrier to scientific understanding. We are left to infer its nature from its effects, like trying to comprehend a predator solely by examining the empty space where its prey once stood. This lack of direct engagement forces containment efforts to rely on indirect methods, statistical analysis of absences, and the chilling testimonies of those who have narrowly escaped, or those whose colleagues simply ceased to be. The 66th terrifying facet is the creeping existential despair it inflicts upon those who comprehend its nature. For individuals who grasp the full implications of SCP-2521, that existence itself is fragile, that reality is mutable, and that even the most fundamental truths can be unmade, a profound sense of hopelessness can set in. The universe, once seemingly governed by stable laws, becomes a capricious void where the very act of knowing can lead to one's undoing. This isn't just fear, It's a deeper, more corrosive dread that gnaws at the very foundations of meaning and purpose. Why strive? Why create? Why exist if it can all be unmade by an indifferent, information-hungry entity? Finally, the 67th and perhaps most existentially unsettling aspect is the potential for a universal information cascade. While SCP-2521 currently seems to target specific information about itself, the concern remains that a sufficiently large or widespread instance of information transfer could trigger a runaway reaction. Imagine a scenario where, through some unforeseen global event or technological leap, information about SCP-2521 becomes truly ubiquitous. Could this lead to an exponential increase in its activity, culminating in the erasure of not just specific data points, but entire interconnected networks of knowledge, perhaps even the collective consciousness of humanity itself? The fear is that our interconnected world, which thrives on the rapid dissemination of information, is inadvertently building the very mechanism that could lead to our ultimate undoing at the hands of an entity that feeds on knowledge. This isn't just about individual erasure. It's about the potential for a cascading informational collapse, a silence that would consume everything, leaving behind a universe devoid of thought, memory, or meaning. Our continuing descent into the abyss of SCP-2521's effects uncovers even more unsettling truths. The 68th key aspect is the erosion of trust in personal memory. Because SCP-2521 subtly alters reality and erases individuals without a trace, those who are aware of its capabilities often find themselves questioning their own recollections. Was that person always there? Did that event truly happen as I remember it? This constant self-doubt can lead to a profound sense of disorientation, a feeling that one's own mind cannot be trusted. The world becomes a fluid, unreliable narrative where yesterday's certainties can become today's impossibilities, and the only constant is the nagging suspicion that something fundamental has been lost. The 69th terrifying facet is the insidious nature of its triggers. It's not just explicit documentation or direct communication that activates SCP-2521. Subtle references, abstract representations, even the idea of its existence, when conveyed in certain ways, can be enough. This means that the boundaries of what constitutes information about SCP-2521 are blurry and ever-shifting. A doodle, a whispered word, a fleeting thought captured in a journal. Any of these could potentially be a trigger. This forces a level of self-censorship so extreme that even thinking about the entity becomes a hazardous act. The very act of attempting to understand it, even privately, becomes a dangerous gamble, turning the human mind into a potential weapon against its own existence. Finally, the 70th and most existentially unsettling aspect is the implications for objective reality. If an entity can retroactively alter history, erase individuals and their impact, and subtly reshape the very fabric of memory and information, then what does objective reality even mean? Is there a fixed truth, or is reality merely a temporary construct, constantly being edited and revised by an unknown force? This question strikes at the heart of human understanding and our place in the universe. It suggests that our perceptions, our science, our history are all contingent, ephemeral constructs subject to the whims of an entity that exists beyond our comprehension and control. The true horror isn't just that SCP-2521 exists, but that its existence implies a universe far more terrifyingly malleable and less stable than we ever dared to imagine. Our unsettling journey through the implications of SCP-2521 continues to reveal its profound and disturbing reach. The 71st key aspect is the subversion of scientific inquiry itself. The scientific method, humanity's most powerful tool for understanding the universe, relies fundamentally on observation, documentation, and the sharing of information. SCP-2521 directly attacks every pillar of this process. It renders direct observation fatal, makes documentation a death sentence, and punishes the sharing of knowledge. This means that the very pursuit of truth, when it concerns SCP-2521, becomes an act of self-destruction. The entity doesn't just erase data, it conceptually starves the intellectual curiosity that drives progress, leaving a gaping void in our collective knowledge where understanding should be. The 72nd terrifying facet is the creation of self-fulfilling prophecies of ignorance. The more we try to avoid triggering SCP-2521, the less information we allow ourselves to process or create about it. This deliberate ignorance, while necessary for immediate survival, ensures that we remain perpetually in the dark about its true nature, its origins, or any potential weaknesses. We are forced to actively suppress the very impulse that might lead to a solution, trapping ourselves in a cycle where our survival depends on maintaining a state of profound unknowing. Every successful containment protocol is a victory for ignorance, and every moment of safety is bought at the price of deeper understanding. Finally, the 73rd and perhaps most existentially unsettling aspect is the implications for future civilizations. If SCP-2521 continues its work, subtly pruning information and shaping reality, what kind of world will be left for future generations? Will they inherit a truncated history, a censored reality, where vast swathes of knowledge and experience have simply vanished? Will they even be capable of recognizing the void? Or will the normalization of its effects be so complete that they simply accept their diminished reality as the only one that ever existed? The thought that our descendants might live in a universe fundamentally impoverished, unaware of what was lost, unable to even conceive of the true breadth of existence, is a horror that transcends our own immediate mortality. It's a slow, insidious theft of potential, a conceptual famine that could leave future humanity intellectually crippled, forever blind to the full spectrum of truth. And the most chilling part is, they would never even know what they were missing. We have journeyed deep into the chilling reality of SCP-2521, exploring the myriad ways in which its silent presence shapes our existence and what happens when it finds out about you. We've seen how it doesn't merely erase, but meticulously unmakes individuals, their histories, and their very impact on the world, leaving behind a profound, unplaceable void in the minds of the living. Its mechanisms are insidious, from the subtle desensitization of those who witness its work to its evolving capacity to gather information, eroding shared reality and trust in our own perceptions. SCP-2521 is a timeless conceptual predator, devouring not just data, but abstract concepts, historical memory, and even the future potential of civilizations. Its precognitive awareness allows it to preemptively cleanse any trace of its activities, normalizing its effects until the absence itself becomes the accepted truth. This entity inflicts psychological trauma on those who dare to approach comprehension, adapting to containment efforts and growing more dangerous with each failed attempt to understand. It turns humanity's innate curiosity into its greatest vulnerability, rendering all resistance futile as it prevents collaboration and understanding through its relentless informational purge. We've explored how its unquantifiable dread and accidental exposure make it an unstoppable force, threatening to conceptually starve intellectual inquiry and subtly influence global events from the shadows. Its paradoxical containment, the normalization of its effects, and the impossibility of warning others without triggering its destructive mechanisms paint a picture of an uncontainable threat. The psychological distress it inflicts on those aware of its true nature, coupled with its insidious triggers and the erosion of personal memory, fundamentally destabilizes our very concept of objective reality and free will. Ultimately, SCP-2521 subverts scientific inquiry, creating self-fulfilling prophecies of ignorance that threaten to conceptually impoverish future generations. It is a silent editor of existence, a cosmic censor whose touch leaves only absence. The true horror of SCP-2521 is not just what it takes, but what it leaves behind. A world subtly diminished, a reality meticulously curated, and the lingering, chilling question of what else has already been unmade. Remember, every word spoken, every thought entertained, every piece of information about it is a risk. And now, you know,